morning, everyone, and welcome to the Oval for the fifth and final day of this final test match between England and South Africa. Of course, very much poised for England to win this game and to do so in good order as well. They need a further 33 to win. They're resuming at 97 for no wicket, and play will begin here at 11 o'clock. So the weather's good and everything will start on time. I can see some players loosening up and preparing for what play there's going to be this morning. And let's first of all check in with the England camp. Alison Mitchell has been speaking earlier today with the former England captain, Joe Root.
Joe, you're on the brink of a match and a series victory, but at one point yesterday the match was still very much in the balance, wasn't it, at lunchtime?
It was, yeah, and it took a fabulous spell of bowling from the two senior lads to really shift the momentum of the game. Something that actually be very easy to take for granted. You know, we see these guys come and perform like that regularly for England, but you look back in years to come at the two greatest seamers of all time, statistically. And I think they showed every bit of that yesterday in their performance.
Ben Stokes as well, another elongated spell of bowling either side of tee, similar to what he did at Old Trafford. He just keeps bringing it, doesn't he?
Yeah, and again, one of his great qualities as a leader, you know, showing what it takes and what it means to him to go and perform for this team and for his players. To be able to do that, it takes more than just skill and fitness. It takes something else, and yet again, he put in something very special for us to be in this position right now.
How important has it been for the team to be in this winning position, given the context that this match is taking place and that moving build-up we had on day one? Yeah,
I think all of it. It's been a great motivator. It's been a great opportunity for us to pay our respects as well, and it'd be really nice if we can finish it off in style, in an entertaining manner this morning as well, to really follow through on that.
Yeah, how frustrating was it last night to have to come off with the light as it was when there was almost a full crowd here?
It was very frustrating, but it's, you know, I feel for the umpires. They're playing within the laws of the game and following the protocols, if you like. It feels like sometimes common sense might prevail in that situation, but you know, I completely understand. If there was a full day of rain today, it might not be fair either, but obviously in the emotion of the game and as a player within it, you see things unfolding and you get caught up in the atmosphere of the ground and everyone entertained and enjoying, and of course we all wanted to see it finish last night.
How much have you enjoyed this summer? Now, this particular series has not been the most productive with the bat, but the team's still in a winning position, but certainly this summer you've still been piling on the runs.
Yeah, I've probably had my most enjoyable summer this year. It's been fantastic. To play in the manner that we have, it's so much fun to do. It's so much fun to be a part of, and it's great. It's been great to watch some of the other guys really step up as well, especially this series, the younger batters. You know, whether it be this game, the previous couple, guys like Ollie Pope as well, throughout the whole summer, delivering and putting in some really good contributions. It's been a real joy to watch and to play around, and you know, it's easy to look past, you know, with Johnny not being here, what he's done and achieved this summer as well, along with all of the bowlers who've regularly taken 20 wickets. So I think really seeing this team take some massive step forward off the back of a difficult couple of years, and that's a really exciting space to be a part of.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Johnny Bairstow, because a big mate of yours and fellow Yorkshireman, but yeah, missing here today, and yeah, a large part of the success of this summer has been down to him, hasn't it?
It has, and he's been phenomenal, and it's been great to see him sort of really establish himself in Test match cricket and show the world what we've all known for such a long period of time, how good he is at this format. And such a shame that, and such a blow for us and for him personally, but there's no doubt he'll be back, and he'll be full of confidence, I'm sure, when he comes back in, at the way he's been playing and dominating passages of play in Test match cricket. It's been a joy to watch and a joy to bat with at the other end.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the way Brendan McCullum goes about things in the dressing room, and perhaps what we don't see when he's sitting on the balcony with the shoes off and the sunglasses on, looking very chilled? How does he operate as coach behind the scenes?
I think he is very chilled. He's very relaxed. He creates a very good atmosphere within the dressing room. And
how does he do that? Is it possible to
I don't think we
quantify?
need to say everything, do we? But I think he just got a very good way at getting the best out of each and every individual, creating a good atmosphere for the team collectively. Very clear with his messaging and very powerful in what he, the way he delivers that. And the guys have responded exceptionally well to it. We've thoroughly enjoyed working with him this summer and looking forward to the new challenges that come beyond this as well. So, I've really enjoyed being around him and having having a slightly different look at how you might play Test cricket. Sort of broadened my horizons a little bit, and I feel a better player for it as well. So as do I think most of the rest of the guys as well. So it's I think we're in a really good place, and hopefully we can continue to build forward as a group beyond this game and this series.
Do you think this style of play, the all-out attacking cricket, is something that you can take around the world in different continents, for example, when you go to Asia?
We certainly will take it around the world, and we'll see, won't we, when we get there. I think there's more to it than that as well, though. You look at the win last week, I don't think it was all crash bang wallop. I thought there was a lot of smart cricket within there, and there have definitely been times within this summer where we've had to absorb moments of pressure and pockets of play and be really clever about how we've done that. And there's times when we've got it slightly wrong as well, but we've learnt from it. And again, that's another step forward for the group. But I certainly feel that we've become a better side for having this approach, and I'm really excited to see how it travels elsewhere in the world.
It's been fabulous to watch, and you
Cheers.
as well, particularly Joe.
Thank you
Well done,
very much. Thank you.
Yeah, a very different man, Joe Root, this summer than the one who really looked so devastated and was devastated at the end of the Ashes and then again in Grenada when England lost that Test match. Is quite remarkable, really, the transformation in Joe Root, but also the team too. Bear in mind, one win in 17 Tests was the ledger as we started this summer. To be on the verge here of the 6th win in 7 is really quite remarkable. We'll be underway shortly. Coming up towards 5 to 11 now here at the Oval. We've got a few people, in fact more than just a few. There's a healthy smattering of spectators here to come and watch what I imagine will be quite a short passage of play. Very odd last night. Victor's alongside me. Or was it odd? I don't know. There were one or two people staying in my hotel who were very disappointed that the game wasn't finished last night. 33 to win, 10 wickets in hand. And when we were playing, of course, it came down to that the batsman could appeal against the light. In fact, the fielding side also was taken into consideration as far as the light was concerned. And because it was always contentious, because one team wanted to stay on usually, and that meant that the other team wanted to get off, there were always disputes and arguments. And the umpires, I think, found themselves in a really awkward position then because of that. And you can see why they've done this, and not least because it's a litigious world these days. And I don't know, if, say, that fielder at short mid-wicket yesterday had been badly injured with that clip from Crawley, I don't know, broke a finger or something, and the light is considered to be not good on fit, then we know what it's like these days. And I think that's why the law was changed. So it is simply down to the umpires now who make that decision. I'm sure they'll try and take in some factors. If there were 10 to win, fair enough. But if a wicket had fallen, a new batsman comes out, Nortje's bowling at 95 miles an hour, I think these are the considerations. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I was trying to explain what happened.
Well, they set the pattern too on Saturday.
Yep.
They could have possibly stayed on a bit longer on Saturday night. And of course, the convention now is that they check the reading, and that is the standard that's set for the rest of the game.
Yep.
So how often do you bend the rules? Curiously, actually, everyone would have been happier in some ways if they'd come off a bit earlier and there was still 60 runs to get and kind of a bit more cricket to be played today.
Yes.
But as I think Andy was telling us, who, as ever, has obviously not been to sleep, but he was pointing to a game that must have caused even more exasperation and even more waiting in Karachi.
This was brilliant.
As recently as 1950 something.
1956.
Both were been in Karachi for this match.
I was looking at the fewest runs required by the team batting fourth overnight in a Test match, and the one-off Test between Pakistan and Australia in Karachi in October 1956. Pakistan needed just 6 more to win, at the end of the day's play, having scored 63 for 1 in pursuit of 69 to win in 46 overs.
It would have been lovely, but what a treat.
The next day was a rest day, so they had to come back. The second rest day of the test, so they had to come back 2 days later to score the 6 runs they required.
Is there a note saying why they went off, and was it bad light? I mean, Karachi, as we know,
his time was up. I suppose
it was just the end of the day's play.
Well, we've seen a game in Karachi that ended after sunset.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyway.
And also, I always remember that game. You would have been there in Auckland when England were in the field, and it was early days of floodlights on the rugby ground. And it was pitch black in the sky, but the floodlights were on. The batsmen were smashing it here, there, and everywhere, but the fielders couldn't see where it was going.
The problem was the floodlights did a great job in illuminating the centre.
Yeah, but not the edges.
And the extremities couldn't see a thing.
Anyway,
that was a strange job. But we're not going to have any of that today. The sun's shining. It's a lovely day here at the Oval. It's going to be a warm day actually here in London today, and it's just a question of when England will score these 33 to win. We were deprived also of the Nighthawk last night. He was padded up, and he was looking disappointed that he hadn't been unleashed there to go and knock the runs off.
And apparently disappointed that he hadn't got the opportunity to knock him off against Norkia.
Yes, in the dark. But he gave a very good impression, at least, Stuart, of suggesting he was felt deprived of not having the opportunity to go out there and do it. So the South Africans are coming down. It's a rather strange end to what has been clearly for them too a very strange few days. Visitors to this country experiencing everything that's happened over the last few days. This match, of course, being disrupted. They're top of the World Test Championship, and I think from their perspective they'll just put this game down to being, well, what can we do? They haven't played very well. Their batting has been weak.
Well, their batting actually looks weak. Just go down the list at the moment. I mean, there's very little experience there. There are not many test runs there, and their best player on paper is the captain, Dean Elgar, who's had struggled a bit in the last couple of games.
Yeah.
So it's not so surprising that they've struggled.
I'm going to make room for Isha, who's going to get us underway here, but I'll just run this past you. Just not in a having a go sort of mode, but do you think, given that at the moment South Africa, India and Australia are competing for the World Test Championship final, which we played maybe here actually at the Oval next summer, they're debating that. I wouldn't mind going on the record saying I don't think South Africa will make it through to the final. I just don't think their batting is going to stand up, for instance, to playing Australia this coming winter at our time. So it's only a thought.
No,
Umpires coming out into the sunshine. Victor and then Isha will get us underway here.
It's a perfectly good thought. You look at that team, and there is real potency in their bowling attack. If Rabada's on form, Norkia's very fast, Marco Jansen, we've seen what a good all-round cricketer he is, but especially with his left arm pace. So they've got an attack that can match anyone, but you look at that batting lineup and you don't really know where the runs are going to come from. I mean, you think that sometimes when England are batting, but actually I think we do know where the runs are likely to come from England, but not in that South African team at the moment. But so they've done very well to get to the top of that table, and they've done it on the back of a pace attack that gets 20 wickets time and time again.
Good morning to you, Vic.
Hello, Isha.
Day 5. The final test match of
the
summer.
Lot's happened in this test match all in the world, hasn't it?
Jerusalem echoes around the ground. Free entry today here at the Oval. Smattering of people all around the ground. Not full by any stretch of the imagination, but a fair few people in to watch what has been a fabulous summer for England, for them to pick up their first or a series win against South Africa, but the 6th test win of the summer, and an unbelievable turnaround really when you think of what's happened in the couple of years previous to that. Andy, you've got your sunnies on.
Yes.
The sun is out here.
Coming into the summer, England had won 1 test out of their previous 17, one of the worst runs England have had in their test history. Now set for a 6th win out of 7. It'll be also the 7th consecutive test this summer won by the team bowling first, which I think the most there'd ever been in an English summer before was 4 games won by the
And that, yes, I mean,
team
I've sat
bowling
in
first.
commentary boxes and heard people say, you win the toss, and even if you think about bowling, you always choose to bat. And even at the time, I thought, hang on a minute, things have moved on a bit since then. We've got covered pitches. So there's one or two who'll be happy to eat their words from way back.
England have suddenly become the master of chases.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. We're on the brink of 6 wins out of 7. And we spent quite a lot of time berating them for playing so recklessly with the bat. You'll have to shut up, I think.
Yeah, the Stokes and Mccullum partnership has led to this positive nature and style from England as Zach Crawley is on strike and clipping the ball out to long leg off the bowling of Kagiso Rabada, bowling from the pavilion end. First run of the morning. England need 32 more to win then. 98 for no loss. Crawley to 58. Played magnificently yesterday. Probably looked the best we've seen him all summer, which was so very unusual because this has probably been one of the trickiest pitches to play on.
Yeah, he liked the situation though. He responded to the situation. Game to be won, no messing. The strokes come.
Gently taps his bat down. Comes around the wicket, Rabada. Lees drives through a vacant cover out to the deep cover boundary. Point rushing around to his left to collect it. They'll pick up another couple here. Slightly fuller in length as he just tries to dig that one out. Leads to 34, then 30 more to win for England and 100 partnership.
Which has come in 17.2 overs. It's England's fastest 100 partnership for the first wicket.
4 slips waiting for Lees as Rabada bowls. Lees edges dropped. Verena behind the stumps, diving to his left. And Rabada, well, he's had a few dropped off his bowling, not least the very first ball, and it was Alex Lees yesterday, dropped in slips by Marco Janssen as England pick up another single, and they go to 101 for no loss.
Yeah, a vigorous drive. He would expect, it wasn't an easy chance, but he would still expect to catch that with your gloves on, I think.
Here comes Rabada again, pushing forwards. Crawley drives, not in control of that shot, but it squirts out to deep cover for another couple then. I think they've scored off pretty much every ball bowled this over so far. 27 more to win.
That's the 6th time Lees has been dropped this summer, and that was also South Africa's 3rd drop in 14 balls, with 2 in the penultimate over yesterday.
Rabada past the stumps, cuts him in half. Crawley looking to lean forwards and defend it, and just a bit of nip back off the surface.
Not many dull deliveries so far, really.
No. There haven't been across the course of the 2 days.
There haven't been many dull deliveries in this series, really.
It was a beauty of a delivery, good length, just cut him in half, looking to play the ball in between bat and pad over the top of the stumps.
Sailed over the top of off stump by a huge margin there.
Crawley sets himself, looks to drive, but bat swivels in his hand as he plays it to mid-on. No run at the end of the over then. 103 for no loss, 27 more to win. Lees on 35, Crawley on 60.
So did you finish that sentence, Andy? You said something about the fastest 100 partnership, and then I'm not quite sure whether you put the full stop.
I hadn't put the full stop, but the bowler was about to run in, so I put a comma or a dash or a semicolon, I'm not sure what. Let's resume that sentence. Beating the 19.5 overs that Lees and Crawley themselves took against India in the 4th innings chase at Edgbaston earlier in the summer. So it's been a tough summer for the openers, but they have made England's 2 fastest ever 100 opening stands in terms of time taken to reach 100 without loss.
Fastest ever?
Yeah, for England in tests.
From 1872 down. Really? Gosh.
3 slips in a gully in position. Marco Janssen bowling from the Vauxhall end as Lees has struck on the pad, looking to work it leg side, but quite obviously going down the leg side, so it's a non-appeal from South Africa.
You seem very matter-of-fact by that. That seems to be very striking, one of your most striking stats.
He was very matter-of-fact
He
with
was, wasn't he?
a few stats yesterday as well that were the first.
What is that then?
I think the most exciting one was Alex Lees' first innings. Scored off the first 5 balls, out off the 6th. No opener's ever done that in Test cricket before.
There you go.
You see, yeah. He's so easy to keep happy sometimes, Andy, isn't he?
The tall frame of Janssen pushes forwards, running away from us. Past the stumps to Lees, who edges and through slips now down to third man. I don't think he even sighted that 1/3 slip. For 4 then. 107 for no loss England, and they need 23 more to win. Keegan Peterson, the offender.
He barely saw it. It zipped off the pitch. I mean, this is an interesting pitch. There's great pace in it, you know. A lot of bounce. It comes off the outside edge and almost the shoulder of the bat, and it flew over the head of Keegan Peterson, who reacted as if he didn't really see the ball.
Oh, I tell you
He's
what.
had a little bit of luck in this innings, Lise.
The run rate for England yesterday, 5.71. I think they're going even quicker than that right now as Janssen approaches down the leg side to Lees, looking to turn it around the corner, but doesn't get bat on it. And Aggers was due to leave the room. He decided to stay because I think this might happen very quickly. To wrap up the summer and reflect on what has been an incredible summer for England. I was reflecting on it last night, Vic.
Were you?
And I was looking at every
What time? Yeah, okay. Go on.
as Janssen is past the stumps now to Lees, who just drops his bat as it goes past him in the channel. I was looking at every single player on the team sheet, and I reckon every single player has improved under McCullum and Stokes.
Well, that's a generous thought. But they've all, I mean, what struck me, not quite the same observation, is that they all, even if they're the real old lags, and you're thinking Anderson, Broad, Root, they keep saying how much they really enjoyed it.
Lees, bat high in the air. This time he does get bat on it, working it around the corner down to fine leg. Kagiso Rabada sprinting in to collect the ball as they come through for 1. Lees to 39, 23 more to win.
I mean, I don't want to be perverse.
22
I've just
in fact, sorry.
toss out a couple names. I'm not sure, has Lees improved that much? He's changed style a bit. Has Jack Leach got much better? I don't know.
I think Jack
he got
Leach
wickets in one match.
He's
enjoying
looked
it.
more confident.
Yeah, but it's better. We're talking better.
He's looked more threatening, hasn't he?
Well, Lees has looked more confident.
Crawley leaves with the angle across him from the left armour at the end of the over. 108 for 2, 22 more to win then England.
The other factor that leads to more enjoyment, as has been pointed out to me, wouldn't affect me much. End of COVID restrictions, which a sage on my right has mentioned in my ear, who obviously likes to get out and about a bit.
I was going to say, why wouldn't it affect you much, Vic?
Well, because I lead a pretty hermit-like existence anyway.
I thought you liked to get out and about in the West Country.
Well, down there, obviously.
Lees on strike. Still 4 slips for Rabada, who's bowling quickly into him. Inside edge onto the pad. It drops out in front of him. No run.
But I think it's a good observation, though. I mean, England have... If you were... Someone told you in May they'll win 6 out of 7. They might have said you were in the wrong career. And they have. Fantastic, isn't it?
Just standing a bit taller, aren't they? Alex Lees on 39 then. Gently looks behind him. Back of his bat now facing Rabada, who bowls. Lees pushes to the offside, no run. Ben Stokes talks about the mindset of this team and not necessarily focusing on the results.
Yeah.
More the process. And I think he'd be pretty happy with the way Lees has gone about his approach this summer, albeit if those catches have been taken, maybe that confidence would be lacking.
Yeah. I mean,
right
I think
now.
This is what I think. I'll let Rabada bowl this.
As he shuffles forwards now. He bowls to Lees, who drives, but one bounce into backward point, no run.
The summer's coming to an end. There's a little hiatus, and then the next batch of test matches in Pakistan and then New Zealand. I mean, I think it would be remiss not to consider Lee's position. It's almost an insult to all the other cricketers, professional cricketers. Far more professional cricketers, of course, in England than ever there were in New Zealand, which is the environment that Mccullum was used to. More choices, possible choices. You've got to have a look at least to establish whether he's the man for the future.
Rabada bowls, Lees drops his bat again, watches it sail past his chest. Back of a length delivery is... he's definitely got some pace up this morning, Kagiso Rabada. I think he's an angry man.
Well, he's been unlucky this test. He's had catches dropped, but then he also bowled a horrible first spell that kind of set the tempo, set England off running in the first innings. And then he's had moments of brilliance, of course, throughout the series. He's got a lot of wickets in the series, but been quite expensive.
Square leg goes out to the boundary, round the wicket to Lees, who inside edge onto the pad as he leans forwards. There's a half appeal from Rabada, who turns around, given not out. He's got a smile on his face now as he realises there was a significant amount of bat on ball.
If we count that,
are we reviewing this or not? No, we're not.
If we count that ball that went over Peterson's head as a chance, which I think it probably was, that's 4 missed chances in 19 balls.
Is that a record?
Well, it must be close. I think it'd be hard for me to dig that out. I think.
Are we having a review?
No, they are reviewing. Well,
it didn't look very apt, did it? But thank you.
Well, I tell you what, I think my eyes have got me into trouble here. I think that it was significantly veering back.
Roll it back, looks like it's missed the bat.
And no bat involved.
No bat involved. It's quite high. It's beaten the inside edge. It's sort of on the line of about a leg stump.
Pitching it sort of.
It's out.
Yep, over
It's luck. Lisa's luck has run out.
Back on the screen. I recommend you change your decision to out. Second one.
It's a good review then.
Well, it was very strange because it felt like the call came late for the review. Everyone had returned to their positions. Rabada was walking back to his mark, and smiles on the faces of the South Africans as they have Alex Lees for 39 with 22 more needed for England.
And you felt they reviewed it partly because, well, for heaven's sake, they only need 25 and we've got a couple in the bank. We might as well have a mischievous look. And then when we actually saw the replay, it was hitting the top of leg stump. And it's out. So out comes Ollie Pope. And he's as the crowd's got bigger and bigger actually, and obviously a lot of them Surrey supporters because Ollie Pope gets a great round of applause. He always comes out very quickly, busily going through a few stretching exercises. Quick punch of the gloves with Zach Crawley and down to business.
Oh, this is his arena, isn't it? Averaging 87 here, I think, prior to this test match. Another man that stepped up.
Yeah. No, that's a definite plus.
Summer.
I mean, your general observation, I agree with. I just thought I'd toss in a couple of names to, keep
Devil's
you sharp.
advocate, yeah. Averaging 34 this summer. 100 and 250s.
Yeah, that was before his first innings in this match. And he made 67.
He's played. We keep thinking of young Ollie. He's played over 30 tests now.
Here he is now as Rabada bowls, clips this to the leg side, gets the toe of the bat and it pops up towards square leg. Mid-wicket comes around as he's off the mark. As the crowd appreciate that one. So England 109 for 1.
Even then,
21 to win.
First ball, he was kind of a little skip down the pitch, I don't think Lees thought he'd be given out there. Rabada was always quite interested. He doesn't move much, Lees, on the crease. He stands pretty statuesque. He doesn't look too concerned. Then he started rubbing the inside of his almost thigh, just as a reminder to the umpire that, it's way above the knee roll, this one. But he was still stuck on his stumps. He's gone. That's his summer done. As a test player, I don't suppose he'll be playing for Durham in the end of the season.
Into Pope, who lets it go past him on the angle. Flag at half mast above the pavilion on the far side of the ground. Gentle breeze getting up here at the Oval as Maharaj has the ball in his hand. He tosses it now to Marco Janssen. So 21 more needed. We can peer into the dressing room and see Ben Stokes sat in the chair watching on as Janssen bowls. Inside edge from Pope, looking to drive out to deep backwards square it goes. And Kagiso Rabada falls as he tries to pick it up with his left hand. They'll come back for a couple.
And then he does something that neither you nor I could achieve, which is he was lying on his back on the turf about 50 yards from the keeper, and he threw it straight into his gloves from that position. He's quite an athlete.
He really is. So 19 needed now for England. As Pope moves to 3. Open stance to Janssen, forward and defending. Down the pitch, no run. Full slips in position for Ollie Pope, who's now just assessing the track. It's looking very beige now.
The umpires, he's just having a word with Janssen about running on the pitch, which technically, again, that's the right thing. He probably was a bit close. Only 20 more runs needed. 19.
Doing their job. Janssen past the stumps to Pope, who's on the back foot and dabbing at the ball to point, no run. Fairly calm atmosphere here at the Oval. You feel with South Africa it's just completing the formalities, really. I mean, they're going to try and extract a couple of wickets here, but
well, if you're Janssen and you're Rabada, you want more test wickets, and there's still some zip in this pitch. I mean, this is, I'm not saying it's a bad pitch, but it's a lively pitch.
Janssen in again to Pope, who pulls out to the deep square boundary. A short ball bowled and met with authority from Pope. 14 needed for England to win this series and to cap off the Test summer.
That's a fine shot, isn't it? I mean, looking back where we have progressed, you said everyone's got better, and you might be right. But Ollie Pope is at the moment, for the first time, he's sort of nailed on as England's number 3. He hasn't had a fantastic summer, but he's scored enough runs. He's looked convincing. He really looks like he relishes the challenge too. And to have someone you can ink in at number 3 is an advance.
Pope gets into position now, clipping to square leg, no run.
Thought he was bound to be out next ball after I said that. But that is, for the moment anyway, that's a problem solved.
So 115 for 1, 15 more to win then for England. Well, the next question for him is around playing in the subcontinent.
I think he should be good at that, though. He's not a bad player, but if he stays positive, you're a bit worried about this. Be all right in Pakistan, won't spin much out.
Also with Pope, as Aggers replaces Isha, he's had 4 50-plus scores this summer. A century at Trent Bridge in that high-scoring game. But the other 3 have been in pressure situations.
So 115 for 1, then comes Rabada and bowls, and that's a good delivery too, bouncing and going past the outside edge as Crawley tried to defend. 115 for 1.
But he's top scored in a couple of innings, which is always quite significant in a low scoring match.
So he had
isn't he?
82nd in the 4th innings chase at Headingley, England chasing 296 to win, and they were 17 for 1 when Pope came in, then 51 for 2 when Crawley was out. He made 82. That's his only score over 30 in the 2nd innings of a Test match.
Rabada again moves in bowls, and Crawley works into the leg side. There'll be 1 there. Maharaj actually falls over there as he tries to pick that up, scrambling desperately at wide, but on 116 for 1. So 14 more needed by England to win this match and to win the series.
And then in the 1st innings of this series, he made 73 out of 165 all out for England. It was no one else made more than Stokes' 20, and in the 1st innings of this game, 76. And again, no one else really made a significant contribution. The next highest score was 23. So
here's Rabada moving in, bowling short. He's pulled out towards deep square leg. Chase for the fielder down to our left. Is he going to get there? Well, he does actually. A despairing dive. Good effort that from Rickleton. And he saved 1 run, albeit have to say, rather needlessly, but he really threw himself at that and kept Pope down to 3, so it's 11 to win. And Pope goes to 10. And I agree with you, if you go down the list, actually, I think everybody has benefited this summer in some way. They've all made advances. You know, look at Stokes. Crawley, of course, under the microscope for much of the time, but he's played well the last couple of games. The bowling, I think of the red ball reset in the West Indies. Jimmy Anderson's taken 27 wickets this summer at 17, and Stuart Broad 29 at 27. Looks a bit absurd now, doesn't it? 119 for 1. Rabada's on his way, and he bowls for Crawley nicely forward, and Rabada picks it up as he follows 3. I mean, the reset happened in the first week in June. Really, that's where the reset happened. And for McCullum and Stokes between them to turn things around. And I do think, I know I made that little note there about COVID, but I mean, I think that has had a lot to do with the way that the players can enjoy the summer.
Yeah.
It hasn't been like that. I mean, Australia was a really difficult experience. Here's Rabada bowling and steered away to backward point. There's no run. I mean, the West Indies are still all sorts of masks and all that sort of stuff. Whereas this is the first time since the pandemic that England could actually play their cricket in the normal way. And
but they've
talk to people.
I'm absolutely sure that's true. But there's also been this sort of freeing up, and it's easy to say, play without fear.
There's Rabada, and he's sliced for 4. Crawley on the front foot, a little bit of width, he's carved it away. 123 for 1, 7 more to win. Crawley goes to 65.
It's the magic of saying, play without fear, don't worry, go for it. And actually being credible. I remember before England's disastrous World Cup in Australia, just after Morgan had been, the management was saying, we want our team to play without fear.
Rabada bowls outside the off stump. There's no stroke from Crawley. And it goes winging through to wicketkeeper Farina. That might be the last maybe you see of Rabada. There's 6 to win. It might be that Dean Elgar thinks I'll give the big fast bowler a rest, even if there is a little bit more to go.
So going back to just very briefly, I remember, the management. We want our team to play without fear and to go for it. But no one really believed them. Whereas, somehow or other, when it's come from McCullum and Stokes, they're right on with it. Yeah. Just as actually they were when Morgan then had the one-day captaincy with Trevor Bayliss. They believed them too when they said, you're going to play without fear.
Jansen's on his way and he bowls to Pope.
My goodness.
That's a nasty one. He tried to flick out a sort of reverse ramp, and I think that might have stung him a bit because he's worn that round about the shoulder, I would say, as he tried to flick the other way over the slips. It's been called a no ball, so he's going to have to face another one, so it's now 5 to win. But so that was, I'm not quite sure why he thought that was a good idea.
Well, Joe Root did it, didn't he, in one match? He suddenly,
he hit him on the arm and the helmet. He's hit him on the grill. He's going to have a concussion test.
No, we're going to have
Yes,
he's regretting that decision now.
There's a concussion test with 5 to win.
Ben Stokes, we've seen Ben Stokes. He tried to do that reverse scoop to win the test match.
But it would look very fancy. But
Ben Stokes we saw leaning back on his chair, broad smile, clapping.
Well, out comes the physio then. This all seems a bit... Actually, for those who've got a sweepstake of 11.33 for the winning run...
It's quite an asset, this.
I don't mind a concussion test. As long as he's all right, and I'm sure he will be. But, yes, I went 33 runs, 33 minutes. But anyway, it went into his grill, I think. It came off his arm.
And it might have just
and up into the grill
chin.
of his helmet.
No, he looks all right.
He looks fine.
Bit tricky, though. You've got to quickly remember who the Prime Minister is.
Yes, indeed. Just looking at it again, so he got down in that reverse ramp. It did cut back at him a bit, but it went to a glove forearm grill.
Yeah.
And
he's
then
all right.
Bounced away. He's okay. It's a very quick concussion test. What's the time? 24.
I've gone.
We've seen longer. We've seen longer ones than that. What about you, Andy, on the sweepstake?
11.23.
Oh.
He got that for 6.
I don't think there's a prize. I don't think there's a prize for this sweepstake.
Oh, that's all right.
There's the sort of thing that always people do, don't they, in the office? So I'm keeping an eye on 33 anyway. 125 for one. There's 5 to win.
Do you think, even in this era, Ollie Pope might abandon the reverse scoop
I think he might now.
mode of trying to win the game?
He's okay, and Jansen's going to bowl. So with 5 to win, in he goes, bowls short. He's swung all the way out towards long leg. Rabada's down there, so it'll only be 1, and it brings him down to a boundary hit away. 4 to win. He's got a smile on his face, but rather sort of a clenched
Sheepish
teeth smile.
Yeah, well, he really can't make too much of a fuss about getting hit.
No.
It was sort of self-inflicted in a way.
Yeah.
But a sign of the times.
Field coming in. There's still a fine leg. But there's also still 4 slips. And Jansen's on his way. Over the wicket he goes. Bowls to Crawley, who tries to flick that away down the leg side. If that had gone fine, that would have been it. He didn't quite get any bat on that. 126 for 1. 4 needed to win. With a few people sitting out here in the sunshine.
Well, I think there's
Blue
quite a
sky.
big crowd, given that they were never going to get more than half an hour or 40 minutes.
It's the charity day today, and it's actually, unfortunately, the charities at the Oval are supporting might not have done as well as had it been a nail biter. But anyway, 126 for 1. 4 to win. Jansen's on his way, cruising in. Left arm over the wicket and bowls to Crawley, who leans back and hits it for 4 through the covers. And England have won their 6th Test match of the summer, the first time that has happened since 2004. They've won this by 9 wickets. And who on earth would have predicted that amongst the wreckage of the winter? To turn things around as they have is really remarkable. They've beaten the World Test champions. They've beaten India in that one-off game, and now they've beaten the team that is the current leader of the World Test Championship, and they've won this series 2-1. As there are handshakes around, and that'll be a nice little innings there for Zach Crawley. Actually, that'll make him feel good about life. He's 69 not out. As the players walk away, it has been a very unusual match, of course, and I think we should include South Africa in that as well. The maelstrom of what's been going on over the last few days as visitors to this country, to be caught up in all of this would not have been easy for them to have coped with either, and the uncertainty of the match. But you have to say, I think, although South Africa won that first Test match and they hammered England in that by an innings and 12 runs, the way England have come back since then has been truly emphatic. There's no doubt really about who has been the better team.
Actually, the biggest difference, and we've talked about England's batting frailties, is that you look at England's batting lineup and it does look superior to the South African batting lineup. I also think because the ball has moved around a little bit, I mean, the likes of Broad, Anderson, they've taken their wickets quickly, but they haven't given many runs away in between. Rabada's got lots of wickets in this series, but he has been quite profligate against aggressive batsmen. South Africa couldn't find enough runs. But it's been an engrossing Test match, a unique one in many ways, and I think it's in its own way it's been a sort of triumph for everyone at the Oval who's organised it, and the ECB made the decision that it would go ahead, and I think that's been a good one.
Ben Stokes is at the bottom of the stairway there. He's shaking hands with all of the South Africans as they walk past. And there's lots of claps on the backs there too for Zach Crawley and Ollie Pope, and, as they walk off, having just done the job. Really, they did lose Lees earlier on, but it's just really a question of England finishing it off today. And well, what a summer start for Ben Stokes. His first summer as captain. It has, as he promised, been a bit of a roller coaster. Lots of ups and downs and moments where you shook your head and saying, what is going on here? We don't quite get our heads around this.
You can't really argue too much with them, can you?
Not when you see the score lines.
No.
Not when you see the score lines.
And I mentioned it yesterday, I think, I still love the shot before a ball was bowled in any of the Test series when someone asked him, recent record dire. I mean, I expect you'd be glad to get just a few draws. Draws? He said draws. I'm not interested in draws. We're going out to win.
Yeah, there hasn't been a single draw.
There hasn't been a single draw, and never.
5 wickets, 7 wickets, innings and 12 defeat, innings and 85 win, and now 9 wickets. I mean, there have been some emphatic results too. Now, normally, I must explain, I potter off down to the far end to go and interview the players and so on, and sort of soak up the atmosphere down there. The atmosphere is going to be very different down there, and there's not going to be the sort of the celebratory scenes, understandably, that one would normally have. But also, we've been shorn of some of our equipment, which actually means that physically I can't go down there and do it. So we're going to carry on. We'll get some interviews down there, hopefully from our colleagues on BBC Television, that we can drop in every now and then. We're going to look back at this game, look back at the series, and also look back at the summer as a whole as well over the next half hour or so. While they'll put a podium up, and there will be photographs for the winning side and so on, but none of the usual scenes that you would expect at the end of an international summer. Vernon Philander's here as well, and he's going to chat away through this. And England have won this test match by 9 wickets. They've done so pretty early on the 5th day, but let's not forget that was actually only the 3rd day of the game, and they've won within half an hour of that 3rd day starting. Again, another emphatic result, and has been the way in this series, hasn't it, with England, of course, losing the first test match by an innings. They won the second by an innings, and they've won this match by 9 wickets, with Zach Crawley hitting 4 runs through the covers to finish on 69 not out. He played nicely in that innings. Ollie Pope was 11 not out. They lost Lees to Rabada a little bit earlier on for 39. So it means that England have won the series 2-1. They've had a remarkable summer in which they've won 6 of the 7 tests that were played. That hasn't happened since 2004. And bear in mind that when this new regime started, Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes, they were picking up a run that stood at 1 win in 17 matches. And I'll be honest, having stood there at Grenada and surveyed the scenes, it did seem that English cricket was about as low as it could possibly get. Those decisions, of course, about Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson, the red ball reset. It's worth noting that Anderson's taken 27 wickets this summer at an average of 17. And Stuart Broad has taken 29 wickets this summer at an average of 27. And I suspect they will feel that the reset might have started at the start of June rather than when they were left out. And it started when they were brought back into the fold, Victor.
Strikes me we should drop them more often.
You would think that.
Well, I mean, just look at their response.
Well,
it's brilliant.
I think the reset started when they returned to the team.
Yes, okay.
All very odd to be back on that.
In this series, as opposed to the New Zealand series, it's been a good time to be a new ball bowler. I'm not trying to diminish what they've done, but they've had that little bit of help. The ball's nibbled around. It swung here yesterday, and once the ball's moving, they are very potent. That pair, Jimmy's been wonderful, and he's always been, in the last decade or so, great to watch. It's almost like watching a wrist spinner bowl sometimes, when he's going to bowl the googly or when he's going to bowl the in swinger as opposed to the away swinger and all that stuff. So you're right. England have gone back to a rather strange way of going about their business, which is that they've tried to pick the best team for every game rather than being too clever and juggling.
No rest rotations and everything else.
And it's worked quite well.
Just one of Vernon. I mean, it was such a hammering that South Africa gave England in the first test match, and there's all the talk of how they're going to come out and smash South Africa's bowlers everywhere, and we all thought, maybe actually this is the check that England needed. A bit of a hang on a minute, just take a step back. It's all very exciting talk and so on, and yes, you beat New Zealand and that amazing win over India, and that was a very heavy defeat indeed. I wonder how South Africa feel actually now, having lost that series from that point, because they would have highly fancied themselves to have won.
Yeah, I think it's a massive turnaround for England. Sometimes, you also have to be realistic as to where you're at and, the opposition that you're facing. And I think they've gone back, obviously realizing that this South African attack is not an attack that you can just bully and, play in a loose manner. I think, yes, of course, throughout the series, you feel at times that they've let South Africa back into the contest by playing a couple of loose shots. So
in this game they did.
Absolutely. So reality check. So they'll probably still go back and identify those sort of areas and say, listen, if we could be a little bit more clinical in that department. We can really take the game away from opposition. But I think all in all, for me, the big concern is the margin of victory. I think in all 3 test matches, it's massive. I mean, lose by an innings, win by an innings, win by 9 wickets. So to me, and it all boils down to that first innings, irrespective, where we have played, throughout the series. That first innings in all 3 matches has been such a key a key innings, within the context of the series.
England bowled out for 160 in the game in which they batted first in that game at Lord's.
So it almost become a talking point of, you win the toss, you bowl first and you win the game. So I think it's probably something that you want to turn around. But for me, you have to give a lot of credit to England for turning it around from, after that first test match. Obviously, a lot of talk going, in the way of South Africa and their seam attack. The big concern for me, coming into the series from a South African context, was always going to be the batsmen.
Yeah.
They've had 200s in the last sort of 18 months, and I'm not surprised, with the changes, in this particular test match because of, the batsmen being under pressure, not delivering, and they were always going to be exposed at some stage. And I think, also we were all talking about, the ploy that England have used, in that first test match, in the way Jimmy and Brodie has almost gone away from their natural game plan, and it mentions that, they've obviously settled back into that sort of game plan, being successful, and then of course they took a lot of confidence coming into this fixture. And if the ball's moving around, those are probably the 2 bowlers that you want in your arsenal.
Yeah. It's interesting. I thought the Old Trafford test, for all the talk of this positivity and the way they're going to play, actually I thought England they played that test match really well. Actually,
well, they were quite clinical with
it. It wasn't reckless. It was positive, but without going over the top.
Well, I remember when Stokes and Folkes were together, and the match was still sort of in the balance. There was a lot of work to be done, and then Harmer came on. First ball, Stokes hit him for 6, slog swept him for 6. I thought, hello, here we go. We're Bazball, or I don't like Bazball, but we're going for it.
Yeah.
But actually, from that moment on, Stokes, and indeed Folkes, but Stokes especially, played aggressively but with discipline. And he bided his time, and he wore the bowlers down. And it wasn't chaotic, sort of macho aggressive stuff. It was just very, very good batting. But he still has his he still gets excited now, and I don't know, I feel we could be even better if they just tempered that a little bit. Even with Joe Root. Joe Root is one of our greatest ever players.
Yes.
So I don't really want to see him chasing a length ball that's 18 inches outside off stump straight after a break. He doesn't need to do that because he likes getting hundreds. Really.
It has calmed down a bit, I think.
A little bit, yeah. But there's
so
many other positives. I mean, you can't criticise them too much because it's 6 out of 7.
Do you think that more teams will play like this, Vernon? I mean, I think, again, it's not... I think maybe against India particularly, and New Zealand, the test match earlier, where you weren't present, of course, that there was perhaps more of that type of real out-and-out attack than actually we have seen in this series, largely because of South Africa's bowling attack. But it's a mindset, isn't it? It's a mindset of how of getting after a side, and even when that team is in control, it's a question of making you think, am I really in control of this? I'm going to try and get it back. And that's really what this is all about, I think.
Absolutely. I think for me, the big standout point is that every player should, go within his own game plan and find out what is the most positive way that he can come across. And I think the typical example for me would be a guy called Ollie Pope. I think, his way of being positive is looking to rotate the strike, get off strike, be busy. And once the bad ball presents itself, you take full advantage of it. So, it's going to differ from player to player. I think, Ben Stokes for me will probably be at his most dangerous when he gets himself in. And, once he gets a hold of the pace of the surface, once he's weighed the bowlers down for maybe one spell, get him into this, second and third, fourth spells, then you can really dominate bowling attacks.
Yeah.
And I think something that Johnny Bairstow has done particularly well is, everyone is talking about, the rate that he's scoring at, but if you look at the way he's gone about his business, he's really given himself the best opportunity to play in that fashion. And of course, we have seen, once you get to the 35th over that, you can play that way. But for me, it has been really impressive. Yes, the mindset, will always have to be one of being positive intent. But again, it will differ from player to player.
But I don't think it's totally revolutionary either. If you watch the Australians play under Steve Waugh, Mark Taylor, you had your Matt Hayden coming out, bristling. They were all given Gilchrist coming in and playing extraordinarily. And so it is not as if people haven't tried to play this way before.
There's more of a one-day influence now. There wasn't
Yeah.
T20 cricket in those days,
No.
and so there is more definitely T20 influence about.
There are more shots available.
Ollie Pope trying to do that ramp there. I mean, there are more shots available.
There
I
are
think,
more
now.
shots available.
And batsmen are better at playing them.
But those Aussies, they scored at 4 and over, and knew that even if they had the odd aberration, their bowlers were so good they'd probably get them out of trouble anyway. But some of the Gilchrist innings were run a ball, disappearing over boundary fielders now and again. So it's not as if this is absolutely a brand new way of playing cricket.
No. What's going to happen with your batting then, Vernon? I mean, I just said, and if you're here next year for the World Test Championship final, you'll be welcome with open arms as you have been here. But I just wonder, looking at your batting and looking at the games you've got coming up, with the other two up there in the mix, India and Australia, and then South Africa at the top at the moment, I'm wondering if your team will make it to that final, because the batting's got to improve a lot.
Yeah, there has been a big question mark coming into the series, of course, in that batting department, and I still feel that you've got so many greats sitting at home, that can really impart their knowledge as mentors, on this next generation. I think also
people like who?
Well, you've got Hasim Amla, you've got Herschel Gibbs, you've got Callis,
you like them to be involved.
As well, Prince. So, I mean, you have to tap into those sort of resources, because they ultimately the guys, that have been there, faced the tough situations, and obviously made a big name for themselves. So, I'd like to see that South Africa tap into those sort of resources and make them available to this current crop of youngsters.
You've got Bavuma, of course, to come back.
Yeah, that's a plus. Bavuma, Van der Dissen will probably come back.
Yes, of course.
Bavuma played a massive part, and he's instrumental in that middle order. So he would have been a big loss for South Africa, and I think replacing someone in that middle order is always a tough ask, isn't it? Especially in the UK as well, where we have seen wickets stumble, quite early on. So, they were going to be exposed, and unfortunately they couldn't come up with the goods in the series. But like I said, that batting lineup will have a lot more questions than answers going back to South Africa, and a short turnaround time, of course, before they face up to Australia.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy batting this summer. In some ways this was a terrific pitch, but it was a slightly uncharacteristic pitch for the Oval, because it was zipping through at pace, and there was movement throughout. It makes for really riveting cricket. You could play shots on here, but the ball did move around and it swung.
And I think a big point you just mentioned there, the ball swung. I think in South Africa, the facets normally in South Africa would be pace and bounce, and every now and again a little bit of sea movement. So they had to deal with a different facet of the game, which is swing bowling, and of course this Duke ball, do tend to go a little bit more than the Kookaburra ball. So they were going to be challenged, in that department. But yeah, like I said again, they will have a lot more questions.
Just looking from here, we've got pictures of the far end. Sadly, we can't get down there and be amongst it at this particular match. But the players are coming down the steps, lining up, and so on. So there will be a ceremony, will be a quieter version, a more respectful version of what you normally get at this stage of the end of the summer. But the England team are there in a mixture of their whites and in their training gear, if you like, their grey T-shirts and shorts, and the South Africans, who will go home tomorrow, and they'll be, I think, pretty pleased about that, are standing there to the right-hand side, as well as the various winners' medals and so on will be handed out. We should hopefully hear from Ben Stokes and others during the course of the next 20 minutes or so, and we're also going to look back at the summer as a whole. So thank you, Vernon, very much indeed for your company. You've been good fun. We've very much enjoyed your company over the last month or so. So thanks for coming, and hopefully we will see you here for the World Test Championship final, because you're still top. But big challenge coming up with Australia, isn't it? It's the last thought on that. I mean, because you and the Aussies, it's a bit of a fight as well, isn't it?
Don't tell them, Vernon, we're right behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've had some great success in Australia. I think we've beaten them the last 3 series away from home in their own country. So I think the team will take a lot of positives. But like you said, a lot of work to do up until, the Australian series. And thanks for having me. It was a great pleasure being over here. It was a great pleasure, working with the team. And hopefully we'll be back for the Test Championship final.
Just hoping I can see you. I can catch your next tournament in India over these next couple of weeks on my television, because I shall sit back and I shall watch you wading into bowl on some very hot day somewhere in the middle of India, and I'll think of you. I'll say, come on, Vernon.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm dreading it first ball, of the recovery after that first game, but it should be good fun.
You can imagine us sitting there. We'll be willing you on, Vernon. Thank you. You've been great company.
Thanks a lot, guys.
There we go, Vernon Philander, who's been great fun in the course of these three test matches, and we'll look forward to welcoming him back next summer. All being well, if South Africa make it, of course. If I was tuning our way, England have won by 9 wickets. Didn't take them long, about half an hour on this. It's the third day, but it's the last day, and they got to 130 for 1. They started the day needing 33 to win. They did lose Alex Lees, elbow doubly to Rabada for 39, a reviewed leg before wicket, but Crawley finished it off with a lovely back foot forcing stroke through the covers. Pope was 11 not out, Crawley 69 not out. And as we've said a few times now, that really does represent an extraordinary turnaround, really, to win 6 out of 7 test matches this summer, starting at such an unpromising, broken beginning, to have finished with lots of smiles on faces here at the Oval. Dan is sitting beside me. I think you're going to shepherd us through the final 15 minutes or so.
I am.
Good, looking forward to that.
I was going to start by asking you, in all honesty, at the beginning of this test match summer, how many test matches did you think England were going to win against the 2 World Test Championship finalists and a revived South Africa who are top of the World Test Championship?
It's a really good question, isn't it? Because having seen, having stared into Joe Root's eyes in Grenada, the answer would have been very few. The only thing that I think, again, does help home teams these days and has helped England is the lack of preparation that the visitors have. Now, South Africa have had more than most, but New Zealand had virtually none. India had that one strange game at Grace Road against Leicester, which was just a knockabout, really. So I do think you've got to bear that sort of thing take it into account. But I go back to what I said earlier, Dan, in that when in May I heard that Brendan McCullum had been appointed coach, it just absolutely, it was like a light bulb going on. It really was, because we've been lucky enough, we know him pretty well. I've worked with him in New Zealand, watched him play, of course, interviewed him loads of times. Just thought, yes, if there's someone who's going to come in and take this broken team by the scruff of the neck, not make them play like him, but make them actually have his thought process, which is always extraordinarily positive and upbeat and fun. That's the way he plays his cricket. There's no pressure in playing cricket. You know, he just loves it. Goes out there. He said to me a few times this summer, it's the best gig in the world, this. You know, and he's just enjoyed it. So from that moment, I thought, yeah, of course. And then there could only be Stokes as captain. And then they are quite kindred spirits, really. They do think in the same sort of a way. They started off brilliantly, and there's that little hiccup, obviously, in that first test against South Africa, which they're going to have if they're going to play cricket this way. It began frenetically. It had to mature a bit, I think, their thought process and the way they're going to play. You think of the way Stokes got out in those first couple of games, just charging and clothing catches to mid-off. That was unnecessary. I was disappointed with the way he played here, actually, because this was a game in which I think they've won by 9 wickets, but I think the traditional approach, bowled a team out for 118, would have been to have nailed the game down. They did allow South Africa a bit of a chance to get back into it, and I think they've just got to look at things reflectively sometimes, say, okay, that's fine, we bowled them out through being positive, but there are times when, again, you just got to make sure that you nail the game down. But otherwise, no, to answer your question in a very elongated fashion, I could say no.
Well, I genuinely wondered if they're going to lose all 7. But it also makes me wonder, Victor, for listeners at home, they'll find it a bit perplexing and puzzling, because the personnel are extraordinarily similar from the ones that presided over 1 win in 17 matches. Lees, Crawley, Pope slightly differently put up at number 3, but, you know, Stokes, Broad, Robinson. So how much does that make us reassess Joe Root's captaincy or Chris Silverwood's management of the team? How much of that was determined by COVID restrictions, the need to keep on, or the perceived need to keep on changing personnel? I mean, that Root side, I was talking to Stefan Schemmelt yesterday, he said, I don't think it had an identity. Now, whatever you think about the way Stokes' team is playing, it has a very, very clear identity, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's this. I mean, first of all, I think actually we've got to say Rob Key made a huge decision. I mean, McCullum had not, as far as I'm aware, coached a red ball team in his life particularly. Very little anyway. He's done quite a bit of coaching in the white ball 20 over contests. So it was a huge call. I mean, and it's not one that we really saw coming. It wasn't people were talking about Gary Kirsten, who had a sort of contrasting summer in charge of Welsh Fire, as it happens. So it wasn't necessarily. It now seems the perfectly obvious choice. But I'm thinking, why didn't I think of that? It's a courageous decision to go and a left field decision to say I'm going to pluck out Brendan McCullum.
Kirsten would have been the easy choice.
Yeah,
and
England would not have played in this way.
Definitely not.
But I need to understand that really. So how much importance do we put to the coach? So by looking
we
backwards,
don't know here,
how much was Silverwood an influence on Root when he was captain? I mean, we're putting a lot on Brendan McCullum here.
I remember from afar, I wasn't at the Ashes, and England were having their batting woes, and I just remember a sort of understandable, but I didn't like it, observation from Silverwood about their batting, how they've got to cut out these shots and play, with more discipline, and essentially restrict themselves. And I remember thinking, that's not going to work. Just that mindset is not going to work. It's a sort of defensive, tentative mindset, and it was never going to work. What they've done, and what, to an extent, Morgan did with Bayliss, is not only talk the freeing up, I give you freedom to go and enjoy yourself and play your natural game, but they were able to convince the players that they really meant it and they really wanted them to do that. And that's a touch of magic to be able to do that.
I do think, to be fair to Silverwood and to Root, that last year was a dreadful time to be a captain and coach of anything, let alone the England cricket team on tour in Sri Lanka and India. The restrictions they had, they were trying to keep people out of bio bubbles and send them home and bring them back in. They were playing on minefields in India, having won the first Test match. I think Silverwood being saddled with all the responsibility was a massive mistake. Maybe they're trying to make it more clear cut or whatever, but to give one person, particularly under those circumstances, the job of just being in charge of everything, it was unkind. I think. I don't think anyone could have done that. Joe Root, as we know, does he wears his heart on his sleeve a bit, and he does take some pressure, and he can look, as if he really is quite a bit buckled under that sort of pressure of not batting. That's the only time he actually doesn't look like he's under pressure, but he can look a bit, he looks in the field like a bit worried look on his face. He's a new man now. This is what's really extraordinary about it. Joe Root is a completely different man from the one that was England captain. And if you look at the way that they tried to play, and in a way Stefan's right about the identity, and having left Australia, and we thought, well, that's it, county cricket's got to be torn up, everything's got to be torn up, that's it, we're never going to compete with Australia. Having seen the way England have played this summer, and the fact that Australia are coming here, who I would think are my sign-off piece from Australia, I said, bear in mind that Australia haven't won here since 2001 or something. Watch out, because they'll win here next year. Actually, I'm not so sure now. I think with Anderson and Broad, the Duke's Ball, all the stuff that we always talk about, and the mindset that McCullum and Stokes will put into that team, I think they've got a very good chance of beating Australia now.
Well, we've seen some extraordinary Test matches this summer, not just because England have won, but the manner in which they've won. And I think if you want to try to understand this mindset, the one match that really unlocks it, and unlocks what you were talking about, Aggers, is this need to put the pressure back on your opponent, is at Trent Bridge. Because on a road at Trent Bridge, New Zealand racked up, about 550, didn't they?
Yep.
Now, I can't think of a single Test match team, really in the history of Test cricket, who, when faced with 550 in the first innings, even the great West Indies side, even the great Australian side, they wouldn't be thinking about winning the game. They'd make absolutely certain that they didn't lose it. But Stokes and his team tried to get as close to 500 as possible, and actually they lost some early wickets, about 160 odd for 4 at one point. And that would be the point when a normal side might think about reining it in. Instead, they doubled down.
Yeah.
So whenever they're in a corner, they go harder.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right, and it's so exciting. I'm not sure it's absolutely unprecedented. I'm thinking of the Oval Test match, was it against South Africa, when
Trescothick
facing
played
470
that innings,
odd, and they scored
and
600
England won
and
that
went
game.
beyond. Yeah. So all these things are not entirely unprecedented. And I drew the parallel early on with the Aussies of the 90s and 2000s. I mean, they scored at a rapid rate, perhaps not quite as quick as this lot. They scored more runs. So it is not entirely unprecedented of some of the stuff. That match there, possibly another Trescothick innings in Johannesburg, which turned the game around from an unpromising position. So by being aggressive.
Well,
but go on.
So I should give you another example then, because that's with the bat.
Yeah.
But with the ball, and England just want to take wickets. So we've seen some bamboozling fields. I mean, we've all of us scratched our heads. Five slips when the side's ahead. The side that's batting is ahead. Now, Andrew Strauss wouldn't have done that, would he? Andrew Strauss would have had 2 slips, a gully. There would have been people out on the boundary. He'd have bowled dry. Said, put it outside the off stump. We're going to go at 2 and over.
Definitely.
We're going to stifle our opponents. Stokes doesn't think about what the opponent's going to do. He wants his bowlers to take wickets. And when you watch him captain, if even sometimes 3 balls go by and exactly the same thing happens, he gets fidgety. It's got to change. Different plan, different field.
Well, what I find so fascinating about that, because we've talked about Anderson and Broad, and they've really bought into the new regime, etc. But I also feel and sense in my heart of hearts, they recognise the virtue of bowling maidens. Yesterday afternoon was amazing. They still had their 4 slips, but nonetheless, Jimmy bowled 4 consecutive maidens. Broad was giving them absolutely nothing. And those two, they know, although they can't say it anymore, the virtue of creating pressure by not letting them score. So, and I thought actually, I think it was Old Trafford in the second innings of South Africa. Actually, England had relatively conservative fields. They realised the merit. So I just want them to be a little bit flexible and not gung-ho. There was that lovely quote about the French colonel or whatever saying his left flank was under pressure. He's under pressure from the right, and the up front is no good there. So what are you going to do? Attack! And I'm looking forward to seeing whether they kind of just get a bit more subtle in certain situations, as yesterday.
Well, we'll see. As promised, we could get some reaction now. A player of the match, Ollie Robinson, has been speaking with Alison Mitchell.
Ollie, congratulations. How much pride do you feel for your performance across the matches you played here?
Yeah, it's really pleasing to put in this performance and get the series win. It's my first series win in an England shirt, and it's been a great week and a great few weeks to be back around the lads.
Can you describe the environment as you found it when you came into it, because this is the first time that you've played under Stokes and Mccullum?
It's just a very enjoyable, free-flowing environment. I think Baz and Stokesy sort of ooze that confidence in the players, and they give you that sort of extra lift when you need it, and it's just really enjoyable, like I said, to be a part of. I think you can see from when we're on the field, we've all got massive smiles on our faces, we're all laughing. It's just a really enjoyable place to play cricket, and I think that's why the performances and the results are coming.
You picked up wickets through your own skill set. Are those skills exactly where you want them to be? What more do you want to add?
I'd like to keep going with the pace. It's definitely something I'm working on. I don't think it's sort of an overnight process. It could take 6 months, 12 months to get to where I want to get to in that sense. And I'm always going to carry on working with accuracy and wobble seam and swing. I think you can never have those perfected, so I'll keep working on those as well.
During the course of this match, England now has the numbers 1 and 2 leading fast bowling Test wicket takers in history. What have you learnt from being around Broad and Anderson?
Yeah, I'm very lucky in that sense. It's been amazing to be around them for the last 2 or 3 years. The confidence they give me, having them two bowling at the other end or together at times, is massive. And behind the scenes, they've been nothing but incredible to me, teaching me the ways and how to bowl in different countries, different games, different surfaces. The experience that they're giving me is invaluable, I think, at this stage in my career.
Of course, there's a winter ahead. What will you have to do differently, if much, going to places like Pakistan? Yeah, so I think it's just I've not actually looked too much into it at the moment, but I will study their conditions, their players, and see what I can get out of their surfaces. It's something that I do very hard. I study very hard on where I'm going to play, so it would just be a case of looking at their balls as well that they use, seeing if I can get them to swing or seam, and go from there, and then just bowl hard when I get there, and hopefully I get the rewards. Well done for your performances over this week. Thank you. Thanks. Cheers.
That was Ollie Robinson speaking to Alison Mitchell, and he only played in 2 Test matches this summer. He was kept out of the side by a combination, I suppose, of fitness and the extraordinary rise of Matthew Potts that I don't think any of us really saw or predicted.
I think Robinson's one of the most natural bowlers I've ever seen.
What do you mean by that?
Just he makes bowling look so easy. He's got this lovely rhythmical run-up. Such an easy rhythmical action with a very high release. He makes bowling look incredibly easy, and when you look at that, there shouldn't be a lot that go wrong with it. I mean, he is very accurate, and you can see why he's very accurate, because he does have such a straightforward, very uncomplicated approach and delivery. The only thing he does wrong is bowl no balls, and that's what he really does have to work on, because he's taking too many wickets now with no balls. He's overstepping too often, and he'll crack that. I mean, he learned how to bowl wobble seam in 2 weeks. He is just someone who you can imagine has always had a cricket ball in his hand. And he's just a really lovely example of how to bowl English seam up, as you'd call it in the old days. There's much more to it these days, but he's just rhythmical, relaxed and easy, and that's what bowling's all about, really.
Robinson 2.0 is also that bit quicker, 3 or 4 miles per hour quicker, and a lot leaner, and he was the subject of quite a lot of ire. Even towards the back end of his first season last summer, when he performed so well, people were slightly on his back about how he looked. And then, of course, in the Ashes, he was the last wicket to fall, rather emblematic of a dismal surrender, as his one foot was in Hobart International Airport and the stumps were splayed.
Yes, he said yesterday that he was playing as an international cricketer, but he wasn't working or living like one. I thought that was a really good way of explaining it, and it's very honest. And he accepted, albeit I suspect through being quite exposed and shown up. Actually, you don't often hear John Lewis talking in those terms like he did at Hobart about an individual's fitness, and that would have hurt. Well, if it didn't hurt, well, it clearly did hurt, because he's gone away and worked very hard. So I think he's accepted that now. In the West Indies, he lived in the shadow of Ben Stokes. Wherever Ben was on that tour, you could see Ollie Robinson sort of trailing behind. And there's no one works harder at their fitness than Ben Stokes. So again, Robinson, I suspect, has picked a lot of that up. He looks fitter, leaner. He has put that extra yard of pace on, and he's going to be a handful.
Let's hear from the South African captain, Dean Elgar. He's with Alison.
Dean, if we look across the series as a whole, what are your main reflections?
Disappointment a little bit, a bit of frustration. Coming here with high hopes, knowing that we're going to play a really tough series, starting well at Lords like we did, thinking that momentum will obviously be on our side. It turned quickly at Manchester, and it was tough to get that momentum back into our favour again. But quietly disappointed at the end of the day.
You always knew that England were going to try and come hard whenever they could. Have you been surprised at the pace, even at the way some of the matches have unfolded, all of the matches have unfolded?
I think it's also the nature of the wickets and the weather that we've had around. The sun, there's a saying, when the sun's out in the UK, it's generally a nice batting day. But we were always up against really tough batting conditions. But in saying that, England's bowlers will execute that to a fine art. So it was a massive learning curve for all of us. A lot of young guys within our batting lineup, and I'm sure they've been exposed to what Test cricket is really about and what the standard is about and the intensity of play. In a sense, that is a positive, but it's still disappointing not to get the results in our favour.
Obviously, you'd been missing Bavuma and then Rassie van der Dussen injured as well. Is it a matter of time, do you think, for South Africa? I mean, time is experience, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of that. If you take me out of the equation, our batting lineup hardly have 20 tests, which is quite tough for those guys to come and learn at the toughest arena of cricket, and that's at the test level. The boys are being exposed, and they've been exposed quite harshly, which it can go in your favour as well if you really want to use it to your advantage. It's a bit of a pill to swallow at the moment, but I'm trying to find the positives out of it. And the one is that the guys have been exposed to this level, and they've got to go back home and obviously try and find a way to curb it next time.
How was the build-up to this match? Like the delayed build-up for all of you guys, visitors in the country, and then you're suddenly witness to such an extraordinary event?
It was crazy. I think from a mental point of view, you like never switching off. Even we knew we were going to have that day 2 off, you never really switching off, knowing like, are we going to play on day 3 or not? It's not an excuse, but it's just a bit of background around that whole situation. Extremely extraordinary circumstances that were thrown in, but nonetheless a very powerful moment that we experienced on day 3. Yeah, it was. I think everyone felt that moment and the sadness around it, and obviously feeling off the energy from the crowd. It was immensely powerful and intense. But yeah, I guess I could say I was, yeah.
And it is always a big occasion in a cricketing sense when a South Africa Test team tours England. But looking at the next couple of World Test Championship cycles, South Africa won't be back here potentially until 2028.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't think I'm going to be here in 2028. I'm going to be 42 then, so I doubt I'll be playing Test cricket then.
Go speak to Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah, it is a bit concerning in a way. I know what it means to play against England in Test series, and also to play. Yeah, it's kind of where you want to be playing your Test cricket, I guess, against them. But yeah, it is what it is. We don't have control over that. Hopefully we can have conversations going forward with the relative administrators that can maybe squeeze in a few more tests here and there. So yeah, interesting times ahead.
Is it the length of Test series as well? Is that important to you as a South African team?
Very much so. It's almost like you start getting into a series and then after 2 matches it's done and then on to the next series. So yeah, it's I'm trying to find words to actually explain the feeling around it without getting into any trouble. So yeah, but South Africa still need to be playing a lot of Test cricket.
Good luck going forward, Dean. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
That was Alison Mitchell with a understandably disappointed Dean Elgar. The players have just been presented with the D'Oliveira Trophy. It's a peculiar end of season because of the unique and extraordinary circumstances in which this match has taken place. So there isn't the usual hullabaloo and champagne and whatnot, but it's amazing that they've got this game on, and I think it was the right decision in the end. Andy, before we heard from Dean Elgar, we were talking about Ollie Robinson. You've got a stat about Robinson?
Yeah, well, he reached his 50 wicket mark in this test, in just his 11th test, and his average is just under 20, 19.8. He's the first England bowler to reach the 50 wicket mark at an average below 20 since Ian Botham in 1978. Before that, Derek Underwood, Ken Higgs and Frank Tyson, the only ones to have done that since 1904. So it's been one of the best starts to a test career by any England bowler.
Thank you, Andy. Now, Vic, you wanted to say something.
Well, no, I'm
not about his bowling.
Well, I'm just a very greedy man, as you know.
I do.
And I think Robinson can bat a lot more than we've seen. So I think it also behoves him, particularly with this England lineup, because that tail is getting a bit long for my likings. I think he needs also to really focus on his batting, because I think he can bat. He gets into proper positions and he's got runs, some runs at county level. And I would like him to focus on the bat. I think, in some ways, he could be above the Nighthawk in that batting order. He should be able to maybe come in number 8 and score a lot more runs. I know that's being greedy in its early days, and in test level there is a sort of barrier, a hurdle. You have to get some runs first, and then you suddenly think, hang on, I probably can do this.
But it is a vitally important point, because runs from the lower order. There was a stat not that long ago that the 10 of the previous 11 winners of the county championship had been the side that had the most number of runs after the fall of the 6th wicket. We'll come back to that. Just now, let's hear from the England captain, Ben Stokes, who's with Alison.
Ben, congratulations. What's been the most pleasing part of this series victory?
I mean, there's a few. I think throughout this whole series, it's not sort of been, a real individual standout performer throughout the whole series. And when it comes to team sport, you always want to be able to turn to different individuals at different times and hope that they can deliver for you. And I feel as if, whether that's been with bat or ball, it's been someone different stepping up at different occasions. And that's what you need to win a series against a team like South Africa. It's been very pleasing to be able to captain this side. The lads' mindset and attitude towards this whole summer as well has been fantastic. But yeah, I think the fact that everyone's managed to put their hand up at different times and do something special in crucial moments of the test matches throughout this whole series has been great.
You said at the start of this match that it would be an honour to play in memory of the Queen, and there was the build-up on that opening day as well, and play got underway. Did you feel that energy, emotion was almost harnessed by the team?
Honestly, I'll never forget walking down the stairs there on day 3 to complete silence from 30,000 people. Actually, the old saying, the silence was deafening. Never experienced anything like before. It was seriously special to be a part of like that, and then obviously to sing the anthem with the little change to it was special again. But that day in particular, walking down the stairs at the Oval, I'll never forget.
The match at lunchtime yesterday could still have gone either way. What made you take the ball when you did and keep bowling the way you did?
Look, I think looking at where the game is with it sort of coming closer to the end, and with Jimmy, Brody and Robbo, it's about sort of trying to think how can I get the most out of them with the balls, newer, harder, and still maybe offering a little bit more. So you'll see I've done a lot throughout the summer of bowling one of the lads a short spell, one longer, and then bring the third seamer to follow the longer, so then the other opening bowler can come back for another spell. So for me it's just been about managing, getting the most out of the top three bowlers as I can. And then look to bring myself into the game when they bowled a few overs themselves.
The ball just suddenly started swinging in an extraordinary way. Do you know why? How?
No, it's done that throughout the summer, to be honest. Like, we'll go through stages of obviously when the new ball, it does do a little bit more harder and it starts to seam, but then gone through periods where the ball's got soft and not done a lot, but then all of a sudden the ball just starts swinging. So as soon as Joe and Folksy said the ball started to swing, you sort of look to bring me and Jimmy into the game a bit more, because with Robbo and Brody's height, they're a bit more sort of off the pitch, seam movement and a bit extra bounce. But as soon as the ball starts swinging, that's where me and Jimmy like to come on the ball.
The summer's almost been a summer of two halves in the way the pitches have played. A very sort of bat-dominated, exciting series against New Zealand, similarly exciting series and fast-moving, but with ball-dominating bat in here in particular. What do you prefer?
Honestly, whatever. If we end up winning, I don't mind, and that's where sport is. Sport is always set up for a winner and a loser, and regardless of whatever conditions you're faced with, you've got to think about what's the best way possible of you to get the win. I think it was pretty obvious at that wicket there was always going to be a ball with your name on it, so we had to decide pretty quickly how we were going to go out and play. We didn't feel that sort of hanging around and trying to bat time was the right way to go about it. It was to go out there and try and put their best ball under as much pressure as we could, which is what we managed to do. And look, the way that we managed to bounce back after their opening partnership was phenomenal. That period after lunch, the 2 hours that we bowled there, was really brought us back into the game. We didn't allow them to do anything different to what they wanted to do. They weren't able to put any pressure back onto us because of how well we bowled, and we just concentrated on what we do. And I think that's why we've ended up coming back here on day 3 with 30 to win.
Stuart Broad's now gone to grab Glenn McGrath for Test wickets. How important are Broad and Anderson to you as captain?
I think they're more than that. They're just important to this whole group. The amount of experience that they have, their knowledge of bowling in particular is great for the younger lads we've got coming through. For example, Potsy at the start of the summer. The amount of time that he was able to spend around Jimmy and Brody, ask him about bowling. That kind of stuff is absolutely priceless. It's great to have them in the team. They absolutely love representing England, and as I've said many times before, I can't really see where they're going to end, because they keep performing day in, day out for us, and as long as they keep doing that, you can't not pick them.
And a word on a player who's not here on the final day of the season to mark it with you, but Johnny Bairstow has had a phenomenal season with the bat. So what can you say about the way he's performed? Yeah, he's been incredible. He's been a huge reason as to why we stand here at the end of the summer with the success we've had. Batting at number 5 is a position that is quite sometimes difficult to read, because you can go in and bat at 200 for 3, or you can go in early at 30 for 3, but what he's been able to do is he's played at the same tempo throughout the whole summer. The hundreds he's got has been frightening to watch, and I think he's really come of age as a Test match player this summer. We all know his one-day batting is on a different level, but I think he's really taken confidence in the clarity that we've been able to give this dressing room, which has really resonated with him, and that's why I think we've seen the output from him as well. And final thought on your relationship with Brendan McCullum, a new one at the start of the season. How would you describe the way the two of you have bonded over the course of this season? Yeah, honestly, it's pretty simple. Like, he's constantly says, we're not here for a haircut, and he just thinks, like, what a gig. That's pretty simple, and you share that simplicity of approach. Yeah, I think you just got to enjoy these moments. You just got to enjoy playing international cricket. It's a huge honour to do, and
and at the end of the day, if you can't walk off enjoying what you've done, you know, even in the bad days, you know, bad days will almost make the good days even better. You know, failure is why you succeed, because you don't want to feel failure. You always want to feel success, but it's never going to happen that way. But failure always keeps you grounded, always keeps you level. And yeah, I've really loved this summer. It's been very enjoyable, and I'm glad that we've reaped the rewards as a team.
It's great to see you smiling. Enjoy this afternoon.
Thank you.
Well done.
Cheers.
That was a very measured Ben Stokes with Alison Mitchell. I suppose it's a bit easy to be measured when you've won 6 out of 7, but he's been prickly at times as well this summer. I think he's sort of grown into the role. We were talking before we went to Ben about the batting, and it's been a really unusual summer. Ben Stokes said there about Johnny Bairstow, you can sometimes come in at 200 for 3, or you could come in at 30 for 3. Well, you don't come in at 200 for 3 in this summer. This has been, apart from the Trent Bridge test, it seems to me, every game has followed a very similar pattern. These balls have been very, very effective for the first 40-odd overs. Sides have been bundled out in no time. And most of the runs have been scored by the middle order. And it's slightly concerning for England that their tail is so weak, because on other occasions they're very much going to need it. You look at the Australian tail. I don't imagine that Cummins and Stark and Lyon and Hazelwood would fall over quite the way England's has. But Andy Zaltzman has been crunching the numbers of a very unusual summer, and there are some quite amazing headlines.
Yeah, some of those numbers are particularly crunchy, Dan. Looking at the top 4 collectively from all sides, England and their 3 opponents they played this year, top 4 batters have averaged 28.3, which is the worst in England since 1960 by top 4. Sorry, third worst in England since 1960, but their opponents collectively have averaged 21 in the top 4. That is the worst by visiting teams in this country in a test summer since 1960. No centuries by opposition top 4 players. In 33 of the 34 previous home English summers, there had been at least 2 centuries by top 4 players. South Africa only managed 150 in the 3 test series, only the 8th team to have only 1 half-century in the first 3 tests of a series in the entire history of Test cricket. So they look on paper, well, we could have looked at their difficulties in their batting line before the series, the top order, the middle order and the tail, and they've all struggled. But the middle order this summer, numbers 5 to 7 collectively have averaged 48.9. That's the third best in an English summer and the best since 1949, with 12 centuries between them. We saw Mccullum, Blundell batting so well for New Zealand. We've had Bairstow, Stokes, folks as well, Rishabh Pant for India. The previous record centuries by 5 to 7 in an English test summer was 7, but numbers 8 to 11 have averaged just 13.2, which is the worst by 8 to 11 across an English summer since 2001. So it has all been the middle order. England in the 4th innings this summer have scored almost 1,400 runs at an average of 81 runs per wicket, and have had 5 successful chases. 4 of their 15 highest ever successful 4th innings chases have been this summer. This test at the Oval, 151.3 overs of play, which is the shortest completed test in England since 1912, and the 4th shortest ever. And the Lord's Test, the first test of the series, was the 9th shortest ever played in this country. So we have seen not a lot of cricket. It's as in terms of the average length of matches, it's up there or down there with the shortest series ever. Clearly, there's been some superb bowling. Jimmy Anderson, 27 wickets at 17.6. It's the 5th English summer in which he's taken over 20 wickets at an average under 20. And no other bowler's done that before. Alec Bedford and Fred Truman had 4 such summers. Derek Underwood and Bob Willis 3 each. No one else has had more than 1. In second innings, we talked about his struggles in second innings. Before this summer, in 21 second innings dating back to the start of the 2018-11 winter season, he'd taken 41 wickets at 48. This summer, 10 wickets for 190 runs in the 5 innings he's bowled. In his opening spells, 8 for 114 this summer. He'd taken 3 for 176 in 17 opening spells combined over last summer and the winter. No centuries by any openers this summer. You've got to go back to 1888 for the last time there was a test summer in this country with no centuries by openers. And the speed of scoring, which we've touched on a lot, England's they averaged 4.5 runs and over against New Zealand, 4.1 against South Africa, 4.44 runs per over the course of the season, which is the fastest any team has scored in a Test season who's played more than 3 matches. There have been a lot of low scores, 7 scores under 180 in this 3 Test series alone, and you've got to go back to 1907 for the last time there was a 3 Test series with more sub 180 scores. I could go on, but I think that's probably enough stats.
Well, I hope there's not going to be a test on this later on.
We'll get final thoughts in just a moment. Here's the England coach, Brendan McCullum, with Alison.
Brendan, congratulations on quite an incredible summer. What's been the most pleasing aspect for you?
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. I think the way the guys have bought into everything the skipper's asked of them and the style of play that is authentic to him and the way he leads, and obviously the results are fantastic, but I think that the mentality shift amongst these guys has been quite amazing, and it's been something pretty special to be a part of, to be honest.
Can you tell us how that mentality shift exactly came about? Is it the two of you together? Was it more Ben? Was it more you?
Well, it's definitely more Ben. He's the leader of the side, and I think the way he plays cricket, the way he lives his life is exactly how he leads a group of men as well, and the guys have got right in behind it. They know that he's going to leave it all out there for him, and his messaging's been outstanding right throughout. It's been very consistent. It's been about trying to entertain, trying to ensure that people that pay their money and turn on their TVs and listen on the radio and turn up in the grounds have been entertained. And Test cricket is such an amazing game that it needs the relevance and it needs that support, and that was where the messaging from Ben and where his head's at, that's what our job is, and ideally you want to get the results, and ultimately we're judged by the results, but fundamentally our job is to entertain and ensure that everyone goes home happy.
How much did you know of Stokes before you started working with him? Did it match your expectations?
I thought he'd be good. I didn't realise he'd be this good. We knew each other a little bit, but I think our relationship certainly blossomed over the last couple of months, and enjoyed spending a lot of time with him and working closely with him. He's an incredible human being, actually, and we've seen his life documented on tape recently, and you've seen his own struggles and where he's at in his career and what he's been able to achieve as well. But one thing about him is he's a genuine, authentic person who loves being able to give guys freedom to go and be the best version of themselves on the cricket field, and I think that's really resonated with this group, and hence why we've seen some guys who probably came into the summer with question marks over their head being able to go out there and perform and look every bit as good as every international cricketer going around.
Very pleasing at the end to see Zach Crawley hit the winning runs. He one of those players that you're thinking of?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think what we saw from Zach in the last innings is what he's capable of achieving, and I think we've got to be real careful in this country in particular, in this game, that we don't try and catch form with selections. I think you've got to give guys, if you think they're good enough and you see something in them and you think they've got a higher ceiling, give them the opportunity and then give them time to be able to work it out. And Zach's one of those guys, and I think he'll learn a lot from this innings. He's obviously had these moments before in his Test career, but I think this process he's gone through over the last few months will hold him in good stead, and I think everyone saw how good a player he is, and I'm sure he'll grow and develop from where he is, but he's certainly one of those players there.
A couple of players who at the start of the summer, when they were left out of the West Indies tour, there were thoughts that this could have perhaps been the farewell test for them, Stuart Broad and James Anderson, and yet here we are, and they both seem as hungry as ever, and they're performing and they're taking wickets and winning you matches. What does it take to bring out the best in them?
Oh, and they're smiling as well, which is good to see. So they're quite incredible humans, actually. For them to still have that desire and that dedication to try and not just get better and perform for themselves, but also to pass on information and to give other guys freedom within the dressing room, and to get in the fight and in the competition it's pretty unique characters. And I think those guys have still got a lot to offer in the next few years, and hopefully that's where their heads are at as well, because they're two of the all-time greats, and they operate in the same side, so it gives us so much freedom and so much control when it comes to our bowling and the ability to take 20 wickets, which you need to win Test matches. Was
there ever a moment where you sat down with either or both of them sort of prior to this summer, with them coming back into the Test side?
No, not really. It's sort of, my job at the start was to softly get to know these guys and to understand, what makes them tick. And and what their motivations are and where they see themselves within not just this summer but moving forward, and that'll continue to be a process that we go through. And I've just enjoyed getting to know them all, and I thought English cricket had a lot of talent. It's got a lot more talent than I thought, and I knew these guys were good, but they're a lot better than I thought. And that's a very privileged position to be in, to be able to help these guys to go out there and perform for their country. And it's been an absolute thrill right throughout the season.
A Pakistan tour will pose a quite different set of conditions and different challenge to a home summer. What are you expecting, and how to approach that?
Yeah, that's something we'll have to look at in time, and obviously there'll be some flexibility in regards to balance of the side and things like that, and different skill sets. But I just want us to really focus on what we've been able to achieve over the last sort of couple of months, and it's been such a great journey, and we've been able to entertain a lot of people and achieve some really cool things, and just let that sort of simmer away and let that kind of resonate with the guys for a bit, and hopefully in time we'll look back on the summer really fondly, and guys that have shared this dressing room throughout the summer, in 15, 20 years' time, they'll get together and talk about the summer that we've had. And then, that if that's our focus and we stay where we are right now, then things will work out. When Pakistan arrives, we'll sort things out there, hopefully.
I deliberately haven't used the phrase that's been coined over the course of the summer to describe the style of play. How would you want to sum up and describe the style of play?
Well, I think both Stokes and myself and the leaders within the group, we talk. For us, it's not about crash, bang, wallop. It's about trying to give the guys the freedom by taking away some of the external noise and the pressures, and taking away a lot of stuff which can enter your head sometimes, and the negativity, and it can stymie your ability to actually let your talent come out. If we can take some of that stuff away, remain consistent with messaging, keep giving guys confidence and freedom, then over time talent comes out, and when your talent's good enough, you're going to be able to succeed. And hopefully that's the overriding message throughout the summer, is that guys have been able to mature and perform in their own way at their own time. And for some guys like Johnny Bairstow, that's 100 off 70 balls. For someone like Ben Folkes, it's doing things differently and painting the canvas in his own way. And Ollie Pope are the same. So hopefully that's what we've been able to achieve this summer. There's still big challenges to come, obviously, in the next couple of years. But for now, I think it's been a pretty successful summer.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was a very happy Brendan McCullum with Alison Mitchell. Victor, your final thoughts on what's been an extraordinary summer?
Well, it was fascinating to listen to Brendan McCullum, and it sort of reinforces my theory that when you are head coach at this level, the greatest knack is to free up and relax those players in your team. It's what Trevor Bayliss in his own way did, not quite so with such spectacular success. That is the knack. They take the pressure off at their best players and give them that freedom. It's easy to say, incredibly difficult to do. They've certainly managed it this summer.
Agus, you've seen an awful lot of summers of English cricket. How unusually weird was this one?
Oh, top. It's been great fun watching it. It really has. And McCullum making the point there about how he's made people smile and entertained people. And that's what Ben Stokes really set out to do at the start of all of this. They also said it would be a roller coaster, and it will. It has been a strange summer. We talked about the balls. There's been some quite poor batting. And I think you've got to be honest about that from every side. New Zealand being rescued by Mitchell and Blundell, Pant rescued India. You've got to look at preparation of tourists. If I were Geoffrey Boycott, I would be talking about techniques of teams coming over here and not having enough preparation and practice. They're familiar, but we may look back at this summer and the batting that we've seen and wonder whether it's a bit of a one-off or whether it is a trend, and that touring teams coming here actually aren't very well prepared, and they're not prepared to play against the sort of calibre of bowling that we've seen. And that's for another day. But I think my memory of this summer will be the fact that where we started, Dan, that against all odds, England have managed to win 6 out of 7 rather than lose 6 out of 7, which is how it seemed at the very start.